pushing hard through the trees, the foliage, the scrub, and all that was there. I tried desperately to move as fast as I could without making too much noise to give away my position. However, being wounded and of course bleeding a bit, I was leaving a bad enough trail, trying my best to try and not leave any type of footprints, not leaving any claw marks, and I definitely couldn't take to the air. My wings, boy, they hurt so much. But as I keep going, I continue to hear something behind me. I'm being hunted. I can hear the sounds of them coming. I can hear them pushing through. There has to be more than one. If it was as large as that I can hear, it would be on top of me already as it was moving through. The foliage is cracking and snapping just like I'm coming through. But I can also hear talking. At least, I think it's talking. It sounds close to human. But that's not the worrisome part. The very truly worrisome part, aside from the fact that the sounds seem to get closer and closer, and then as I speed up further, is the smell. I can smell burned carbon, and I can smell weapon oil. This makes me nervous. Whatever it is racked up, stacked up, and ready to rock and roll. I need to get the hell out of here. I need to go. I gotta go faster. I gotta. Ow, that hurts. Ow, that hurts. Ow, that hurts. Okay, no running on fours. Okay. Ah. Oh, why did I have to leave my rifle at the house? Ugh, man, I kind of wish these claws of mine could actually hold some pistols. Good God, why'd I have to give them up? Oh, I liked my twin pistols. Damn it. No time to think about that now. I bust trail until I get to the top of the hill. As I do, I look down and I see something coming through the foliage. I try to move quick, and then I find myself falling down the hill more than running. This is not good. Ow, 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 ow. Every time I land, ow, 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 ow. Oh, rock right in the butt. Ow, 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 ow. Ugh, man, what I wouldn't give to be able to fly right now, but I can't. Ugh. I kind of have to use my tail constantly to balance myself as I'm not able to push down on one side too hard. Eventually, I end up next to a river. Oh, normally I'd love this. Running upstream, opening my wings, and using the currents of the air coming off the water to lift me up. This would be great. If I could fly. Yeah. What's the point of these wings if I can't get them to work? But there's something else I can do. I climb directly into the water and I slither my way across. Ah, the cool water feels so good. Ah, I may be reptilian, but I'm still hot-blooded, and boy, did I need to cool off. I crawl out on the other side, go into the dense foliage, go upstream about 30 feet to where it's the densest, get behind a tree, curl up, and I wait. I wait, and I watch. I'm watching as I could see the foliage begin to move. Something is coming through, but whatever it is being cautious. Something out there knows that I can be dangerous. What is that? What is that? I see the glint. Oh crap, is that a scope? No. No, if they knew I was here, they would have fired already. What the? Wait a minute, there's two somethings. They're coming out of the tree line. Oh, you have got to be freaking kidding me. As I look, they look human. But wait, those aren't human. Oh my God, are you kidding me? Elves? Really? With everything that's going on, I'm a lizard man, they get stuck as elves? You lucky. Oh God, these guys should play the lottery. I mean, for the love of all that is holy. I wait by the river's edge and I see them inspecting the area that I went in. They're conversing whether or not I should be upstream, downstream, if I went straight across, if they should even follow me. Do they even want to get wet? As I look close, I can see there's a male and female, both elves. Well, that's lucky, isn't it? That's very lucky. Again, these guys should have bet on the Powerball and got the extra payment and all this other fun stuff because they definitely hit all the numbers. As I stay perfectly still, I watch and wait listen to them talk. Then suddenly I see the elves look up, and I look slowly to the sky, and I could see the flyers. Apparently, they heard my scream when I hit the ground. Not surprising, that sucker echoed all the way down the valley. The elves pull back into the trees, and they begin to raise their rifles as the flyers begin to move around, not really in a particular pattern, but some are high, some are low, and I don't think the elves wanted to be spotted. I call out, "Those are my friends." This made both the elves freeze in fear, both of them eyes wide as they looked around. The woman kept her rifle towards the sky. The man swung his rifle around to my side of the river. He could figure out where that voice was coming from, even with the sound of the water. Boy, I guess elves do have good hearing. I guess firing that rifle must have given him one hell of a freaking headache, if that's the case. Hey, can we talk? Maybe? Yes, no? I said over, and they just kind of looked back and forth. They looked for me. Where are you? That's all I heard. I'm not coming out till you lower that thing. You already hit me, you dumbass. You really think I'm going to actually come out while you got that thing raised? They both looked at each other. Then they realized that the flyers were a lot closer. They were circling the area. With the amount that was up there, they knew that if they fired a shot, they'd be located in a moment, and then they'd simply be ambushed. They knew this was a bad, bad place to be. The man finally lowered his weapon, then waited for his woman to lower hers. All right, just come out, he says. Before I come out, I simply say, okay, just do me a favor. What's that? Please don't shoot me. With that, I looked at those high-powered weapons and I got very nervous. As I began to slowly raise myself up from where I was, I could see they were very, very nervous. As I walked out to the edge of the river, I simply motioned, "Can I come over so we don't have to talk over this water?" The man looked at me, was a little concerned, and then realized it wasn't just him. He had his woman there. They motioned me over, so I swam across. They realized that I could easily traverse it, looking almost like a gator as I went across the water, although my wings were definitely above the water itself. With that, I walked up to them, and then I told them to relax. I gotta call those down. They said, "Those, huh?" I pointed up to the flyers that now had spotted me, and I waved them over. I asked them to land. Once they landed, we could all talk as everybody slowly unclenched over the situation. As it turned out, the lady had fired on me out of fear. You see, she was protecting something, and even though they did want to make peace, they were afraid of losing the little bit they had, a little bit of comfort that they had. Eventually, they saw that I was continually holding my side to keep the blood in. The flyers were more than a little angry at this, claiming that I was the alpha male and they must protect. I'm like, "We're not lions." Of course, immediately one of them said, "Yeah, you're not lying about that." Oy, even post-apocalyptic dad jokes are terrible. Oy. With that, everyone chuckled at how pathetic the joke was, and eventually we went to the cabin to get aid. The flyers didn't take flight again. Instead, they walked along, making sure that none of us were being ambushed at all. They described what had happened during their change and how they ended up the way, well, that they are. When we talked about our experiences and they talked about theirs, as it turns out, when you become something that's almost human, the transformation is not nearly as painful. They said they had to take a bunch of meds to make sure it didn't feel like their head was going to rip open. But still, aside from that, all they did was get a little taller, a little leaner, get the big ears and the funky looking eyes that they've got. I swear, they're almost like cat eyes. They look a lot like mine. With that, they realized they couldn't really stay in the town. Things were getting bad, to say the least. Apparently, they were actually in their own city. And because of the fact that they look almost human, they were able to get out of town, but they could only get so far. On the fuel they did have, they ended up at a friend's house, who just happened to be one of the prepper type folks. When they showed up, they tried to get in. They knocked on the door. Nothing. No answer. But they heard movement inside. Neither of them knew anything about firearms, except for the small little bit of hunting the man did before all this changed. So he tried what he could. He began to yell for his buddy. He tried to yell for his buddy's wife and then remembered that his buddy's wife had passed away to a car accident 2 years prior. With that, he suddenly started thinking, what if I yell out to the kids? He then yelled for them, and the sounds inside just stopped suddenly. He then introduced who he was, and suddenly they could hear the door begin to open. All the latches were being pulled, twisted, and popped so that they could get in. When they went in, they saw the kids were there. They tried desperately to help out the father, but unfortunately there wasn't anything they could do. By that point, the transformation had killed him. He was apparently turning into a rhinoceros of some sort, but there was not enough biomass. He couldn't eat enough. With the amount of thrashing I did, I wasn't surprised. I ate everything in my apartment as soon as I possibly could, and my changes were not nearly as much. My thoughts went to the one I saw who was part moose who attacked a convoy earlier. The amount of mass that guy had to consume to go through that transformation must have been insane. And this put a big old whopping puzzle piece into why there's so few people. Before we could do much else, the kids pulled them upstairs to show them their aunt. Their aunt was dying. Slowly. She was becoming more bovine. It was a serious issue. They tried desperately to get as much biomass in there. They told the kids to get as much of the prepper food, whatever the hell they call it, freeze dried or MREs, meals rejected by the enemy, whatever it might be, to get those and bring them to their aunt. She needed as much food and water as possible for her body to finish what it was doing. If not, it's literally going to eat itself to death. The kids, as they were talking, saw us coming and ran from the cabin straight to him. And I got a good look at these kids as I listened close, and I wondered if I was going to see a woman who was, well, semi turned into a cow. As it turns out, she's in a coma, and there's not much they could do. They were able to get her over there. However, they were having trouble getting her to become conscious. She had gone through the rest of her change, but honestly, there wasn't much to change. She looked very human, except for the little bit of horns, of course, the ears, a little bit in the facial features, and she was much, much broader. And of course, her skin tone. Her skin tone was not that of any woman I've seen. I looked close and I realized that part of her skin tone had changed into, well, a Jersey. I simply stated, she's a Jersey girl. They all looked at me weird and didn't know what the hell a Jersey cow was. I let them know that her body was still basically changing a little bit. They had to try and get as much food and water down her throat so she could finish. But we wouldn't know until later. Until they got to the cabin, it turns out that they were basically starving on the way there. Their vehicles, even though fueled, did not have enough to make it, and they had to walk the rest of the way, carrying a litter with their new bovine companion, and this made movements very slow. They were basically starving when they got to their own cabin, but when they got there, the kids immediately bolted inside, got the locks undone, and started pulling out tons and tons of food. This cabin was attached to an underground bunker, and along with that, a secondary storehouse built into the mountain. It was all interconnected. Whoever this man was smart. He was ready. Everything was ready. His kids knew the codes, and they looked very drilled. This surprised the wonderful elves as they spoke. Yet, as I went in and double checked on their female cow, I was a little concerned. I definitely had to duck my wings in. It wasn't easy to walk in. The rooms were fairly small, and of course, the narrow hallways made it very difficult for somebody my size to go through. I loomed over all of them, even the other flyers. However, as we went in and I checked her, I realized that she was in good health. Again, she just needed more and more food. I asked if they happened to have any IVs that they could give her. They told me that they were beginning to run out, but I also checked and then told the flyers, one of which, who used to be a nurse, immediately bolted over towards the IVs, and she started laughing. They had all the vitamin shots needed to add to the IVs so that she would actually come in. They even had nutrient shots. I asked what the hell was that. I must have misheard her because she said it's everything she needs. With that, I let her go. The elves had me walk out to the living room where I was introduced to the children. I was surprised at what I saw. There were two boys and a girl. One of the boys was completely human. He had not changed at all, though he was the youngest at 9 years old. Then there was the young female at 10 years old. Unfortunately, her mother was still in there in a coma. And unfortunately for her, she did have to go through a change, but it wasn't super drastic. Not like mine, at least. She was part deer, actually, from what I could see. She definitely had the ears, sort of. They weren't quite as pronounced as you would think, but they did flutter a little bit every single time she moved. She did, in fact, have a tail, which was a dead giveaway. And as she showed, her feet were not quite there. Her legs were that of the hind legs of a deer, which gave her an immense amount of speed and maneuverability. I was amazed at this. She actually showed off a little bit as she was able to jump a 10-year-old, jumping up and touching a 9-foot ceiling. I was amazed. But what was really surprising was the fact that the oldest was a boy of about 14 years old. I'd never even thought a lamia could be male. I kind of laughed at this, realizing that there's someone who's going to want to meet you, and someone's going to be glad that you're a teenager. With this, I tried to keep my jokes in, but as I grinned and chuckled to myself, both of the elves asked, What's so funny? I didn't have anything to say. I was just glad that we now had more people for the community. I was absolutely amazed at this, though I had to inform them exactly what was out there. They were pretty much set for themselves. They had enough provisions to last them almost a decade, provided they didn't overdo it. And of course, they could hunt and gather and do all sorts of the fun stuff, though one must remember, you can't just have one family out there by yourselves. It's not going to last. So I offered them to be part of our community. They wanted to know what the community was and immediately asked, Who else is in this community? Both me and one of the female flyers looked at each other, looked back at them, smiled. Well, at least we would smile if we could. Then I simply asked the question, Got a map?